Okay. Mary Kay, who is our membership VP, is going to introduce Nora. So go ahead, Mary Kay.
Okay. Well, first of all, welcome to all of the Membership Leaders Network for our June meeting and all the other league members that are joining us tonight for our special guest. I'm sure we will learn a lot from her, what she has to share with us. I did have a couple of announcements that I wanted to make. First of all, I want to welcome the League of Women Voters of Lenawee County, our most recent local league, or newest local league. They moved from being a member at large unit with approval from the State League Board and the National League Board. So congratulations to League of Women Voters of Lenawee County.
Yay.
Secondly, I want to thank the roster managers who helped with the project to deal with blocked emails. Those were the ones that are used for action alerts and also constant contact or league links, for example. Your help is greatly appreciated with that project. So thank you, roster managers. And with that, I'm going to introduce our speaker for this evening, who is Nora Pullen from League of Women Voters US, talking to us about the dues, unified dues process, and also chapter spot. So Nora, go ahead.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to share my screen with you all. Share. Can you see that? Great.
Yes.
Okay, so I will be going over the changes to membership and what that'll mean for leagues and the information that we have right now. So as Paul
It's in the
implied,
refrigerator.
there are
I
some
forgot to do
things
the
that we
bread.
don't necessarily know right now. There are some questions that I maybe won't have the answer to, but this is the information that we have as of right now, and wanted to share that with you all. So the purpose of this is to make sure that you all feel comfortable, informed, and prepared for the launch of the new system. That'll be coming up at the end of January 2025. And so we just wanted to make sure that you have, again, the information you need as we move into this implementation. So to start with the background, it's important to ground ourselves in this idea that we don't undertake major change just for the sake of doing so. We're doing this because for a lot of reasons. Primarily that this is the way that we build power. We know that that's how we will fulfill our mission, that there's a lot of vital work that's happening at the local and state levels that could benefit from increased support, which includes financial support, as well as more members and more time. So changing the pay requirement will open leagues to a more diverse and expansive membership than we've been able to encompass right now. And also, this will streamline the processes to free up a lot of time for league leaders. And another thing that I think is important to think about as we get into this conversation is that building power also doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens because we have goals. And it's so important to us to make a difference in our community, to strengthen our democracy, all of that, that building power isn't just done so that we can be a stronger league, it's so that we can be a stronger league to do all the things that we need to do and are already doing. So this has been a multi-stage, multi-year process to, again, increase and diversify league membership, strengthen league operations, and that'll be the way that we build more power. This particular part that I'm going to be talking about is this consistent and aligned membership system, which will eliminate financial barriers to participating, simplify the mechanics of joining, and equitably divide dues among the levels of league.
Nora, could I interrupt you just for a minute to let everyone know, I forgot to say, if people could put questions in the chat, chances are they might be answered as Nora keeps going, but we will address those after she's through. So let's do that instead of interrupting Nora. Thanks, Nora. Go ahead.
So this has been a many-year journey, starting with the organizational assessment, determining the needs of the organization, looking at this organization and saying, hey, we've been around for 100 years. How do we stay relevant, stay strong over the next 100 years and make the difference that we know we need to make? That moved into the transformation roadmap, really looking at the specific steps to get to be that organization of the future. And now, as part of framing the future, we're focused on implementing the new system. So this has been a huge effort from league leaders all across the country, being involved with feedback and thought partnership. I know a lot of you were involved in the working groups and the all-member survey last year, also product demos. Some members were a part of deciding that Chapter Spot was going to be the new platform, the new membership platform. And we've also just had a lot of informal conversations with leagues. A lot of leagues have weighed in on with their thoughts, and this is just an ongoing conversation as we implement this. So to get into the details, members will be able to join online through any website. That's any local league site, any state league site, and also the national website. We know right now you may meet a new member out in the community, a potential new member, and hand them the form. Now there will be a QR code that every league can use that a member can join on their phone, or a potential new member. It will still be possible to sign up offline. You can still hand somebody a paper form, but we're really going to encourage new members when possible to join online. That is part of the streamlining process that will free up the time for league leaders. It will also still be possible to pick any league, any local league or any state league to join as a member at large. It's still, I think there's some concern that someone will be slotted into a league just based on their zip code, and that's not the case. A member can still join wherever they would like to. So we know another thing that's top of mind for leagues is what data will be collected, because that's a good way of engaging new members. And so a very limited amount of data will be collected on a new member at the moment that they join. We want to simplify joining. So the time from a person deciding they want to join the league to the time that they have joined, we want to make that as short as possible. So there will be a fairly limited amount of data collected through that process in particular, mostly just contact information, payment information. But the first time a member logs into the portal, there will be more questions that they can fill out. There will be demographic questions that we'll be asking of all members across the country, so that we can measure and understand who we are as an organization. And then it will also be possible for each local league to put in their own questions. So whatever it is that you want to know and ask about your members when they're joining, their interests, their skills. Also, if, for example, you have multiple counties in your league, you can say, okay, well, which county? We've heard that from some leagues. So whatever questions it is that you want to know about your members, you can include those in Chapter Spot. It will also be possible for members to sign up to auto renew. We know we lose a lot of members who want to stay members of the league, but they get busy and it's hard to remember. And even those who we don't lose, there is still time lost in tracking them down. So anyone who knows they want to be a member long-term of the league can sign up to auto renew. To this end, membership will be on a rolling basis. So if I join tomorrow, June 13th, I will be a member until next June 13th. This is already the case at a lot of leagues, but for leagues where currently everybody joins on the same date, July 1st, January 1st, whatever the case may be, now everyone's membership will last for 1 year from the time that they last renewed. So what this will mean for league volunteers, for roster managers, there will be less manual input because a member can put all of their information in on their own when they join or when they first log into the portal, and they'll also be able to update that information on their own. So there will be less required of roster managers to fill out all that information for everybody, but it will still be possible to do so. We know that there will be people who won't want to join online or won't be able to, and so roster managers will still have access to the roster to be able to change all those things. Similarly with treasurers, this won't completely eliminate the need for a treasurer to collect payments from members who, again, are not joining online, but for anyone who is, that is one fewer check that the treasurer needs to worry about. Also with PMP, once the final PMP cycle is over, then it won't be necessary to get the invoices, write the checks, mail them in, all that. Also with membership shares, like I said, there is that effort put into reaching out to members to renew. This system will automatically send renewal reminders to everyone. And We have all ignored an email before, so we know this will not completely eliminate the need for that personal touch from a membership person to reach out to members who haven't responded to those renewal reminders, but this should decrease the amount of work that they'll need to do. So just in summary, the roles will likely stay the same in a lot of ways, but just hopefully require less effort because some of this will be more automated. This is also expected to increase membership. I mentioned the auto renew and how we are losing some people who just don't get a chance to renew. And so that's one way that we'll just be retaining more of our current members. Also, the join from any site will be a big thing. We get a lot of traffic at the national site with people who would potentially want to join, and we don't have a join button. We have a section where you can look for your local league and then potentially join through that league's website once you get there. Or if that league doesn't have the option to join online, then maybe it's a few more steps, printing out the form, whatever the case may be. And so this will really streamline that. Now, somebody comes to the national site, someone comes to the state site, they'll just be able to join. And that's also true, therefore, for leagues that currently don't allow people to join online. It will just be a much easier process for a potential new member to become a member. This also means and will facilitate national membership drives. Right now, we can't really reach out to all of our followers on Instagram or our whole email list or anything like that and say, hey, you should become a member of the league, because we can send them to the national site, but there isn't a clear direction of here's how you would join if you would like to join. And now having that one link, that one portal will make it much easier to reach out to anyone else. And lastly, the pay what you can model. So right now we know that there are people who do share our values, are interested in the league, would like to participate, but have found the dues to be a barrier to joining. And so under the pay what you can system, that should not be a barrier anymore. So to get a little more into the dues, instead of a fixed dues rate, members will choose their dues amount. So the recommended rate across the country for all leagues will be $75, but a member can choose their dues amount, any amount higher than $75 or any amount lower down to a minimum of $20. There will also be listed options of $150, $250, and $500, but they can pay, again, any amount. The member types will be similarly as to now, most members will be individual members. There will also still be lifetime members. So anyone who has been a member of the league for 50 or more years will still be exempt from dues. That's not going anywhere. That's in the bylaws. There will no longer be a distinct student membership. So when we were talking to leagues, it sounds like a lot of the thinking behind student membership is because of the understanding that students often have financial need and therefore don't have the capability to join because of the dues. And the pay what you can model is really intended to extend that same consideration of potential financial need to any incoming member, whether they happen to be a student or not, whether they happen to be of student age or not. We don't want to be excluding anyone based on ability to pay dues. Additionally, there won't be a household membership designation anymore, which isn't to say that one member can't help another member sign up and renew and all of that, but it just means that there won't be saying this person's a primary member and this person's an additional member. I get a lot of emails and people saying, oh, this person's actually supposed to be the primary and this is supposed to be the additional, which kind of gives a sense that there is a perceived status differential, and we want to make sure that everyone who is a member of the league understands themselves as a member of the league. And that doesn't mean we can't track people as being in the same household. We can still do that. And also, you know, there's the dues component where oftentimes a household member will be paying less in dues, but under the pay what you can model, they can still do that. So that's not going away either. So to get into the dues split, there is no longer a fixed state and national PMP amount like there is right now. This was, again, what was voted on at the 2022 convention, that LWS would take a percentage to not exceed 1/3. And so that's what's going to happen. Each level of league will take a percentage of the member dues that the member chooses to pay. And that percentage will stay the same regardless of how much a member is paying in dues, whether it's more than the recommended amount, less, or equal to that amount. So before, under the current system, LWVUS is keeping around 51% of member dues. across the country. And on average, state leagues are keeping 37%. And this changes based on the state, depending on how much state PMP is and all that. And then local leagues on average, again, are keeping 12% of member dues across the country, which is variable depending on how much the member dues are and also what the state PMP in their state is. But again, that's the average. So under the new system, LWS will be keeping 33% of member dues, state leagues will be keeping 47% of member dues, and local leagues will be keeping 20%. This split was chosen because it's the one that benefits the most leagues. Not every league is currently keeping less than 20%. Not every local league is currently keeping less than 20%, but most are. And if a person joins as a member at large of the state league, so not affiliated with a local league, but just joining as a member at the state level, then the state will keep that local 20%, and for a total of 67%. So the way this is going to work is when a member pays their dues into the system, that payment will be immediately split. It will be essentially 3 payments, one to national, one to state, and one to local. This partially protects part of the thinking behind this is that it protects the 501c3 status of any local league that's a 501c3. When we talked to council about this, there was guidance that if the local league was collecting the funds explicitly in some ways on behalf of the national 501c4, that could jeopardize their tax status. Additionally, it kind of clarifies the fee structure. Right now, if your league does collect online payments, then you're covering the whole credit card fee on that, and then paying the flat rate to the state and national. Under this system, because each league will be getting their own portion of the dues, the local league will only be paying the fees on their portion of the dues. You won't have to cover the larger portion that leagues are now. So this is a diagram of that dues flow. You can see the member joins in chapter spot, and again, it is immediately split into Stripe accounts for each league. So Stripe account is a payment processor similar to PayPal if you're using PayPal or familiar with that. And so each league will need to set up their own Stripe account. I'll get into that a little bit more later. And then you can set up the frequency with which that deposits into your bank account. We've heard from some treasurers, like, I don't want money hitting our bank account every day. I don't want to have to reconcile every day. And then we've heard from some treasurers that are like, well, we want the cash flow. We want to make sure that we're getting our funds as soon as possible. And so that's something that'll be totally within the control of your league. You can determine the frequency, be it daily, weekly, monthly, anything like that. So here is a dues chart, just a comparison, and this chart is also available on the league management site. You don't need to remember it all right now. I will drop a link in the chat afterwards. But basically this has a couple sample dues rates, $20 being the minimum, $60 being the current average across the country, $75 being the recommended rate, and then $100 being a higher amount, and also one that's kind of easier to conceptualize when we look at percentages. And so this is what each level of league would keep given that dues amount and given the method that the member is using to pay. So you can see that the credit card fees are a little higher than if a member chooses to pay via ACH. And for anyone who's not familiar with ACH, that's essentially direct deposit. A lot of online bill pay uses this, where you just type in the information at the bottom of a check and use that. And so those fees are a little lower. So to the extent it's possible to encourage members to pay that way, that benefits every level of league. But this is, again, a chart just to sort of get a sense. So as I mentioned before, this does benefit most leagues. Most local leagues are currently keeping less than 20% of member dues, but around 75% of leagues are currently keeping less than 20% of member dues. But there are around 25% of leagues that may keep less in member dues than they're currently keeping. And so LWVUS is committed to making up the difference for the first 2 years. And so that'll be based on a base year calculation, which is to say, if we look at the number of members that your league has immediately prior to launch and the amount that your league is charging in dues prior to launch. So it doesn't include higher tiers. If you have a pay more and make this additional contribution to our league kind of tiers, but the base dues that you're charging members. And so if we look at that base year amount, how much you would have taken in under the old system, if your league takes in less than that amount, LWV US will make up the difference. And it'll be a fairly straightforward process of doing that. There'll be a form to fill out, but it's not a lot of information that'll be required. Basically just what the dues are currently is all we'll really need to know, because we'll have the member count as we take the member count every year. And we'll know the amount that came in. So it'll be a fairly straightforward process to get that. If your league is experiencing dramatic shortfall or cash flow issues, you can also reach out before that year has ended, and we can, on a case-by-case basis, work with you and see if we can help that out. But as I mentioned, most leagues should be coming out ahead from the beginning. And then after 2 years, the increase in membership is expected to mean the vast majority of leagues are coming out ahead. So another thing that's really important to talk about, as I was just talking about the tiers, I know that this is a time, the moment of renewing or joining is a time that a lot of leagues currently are using as a fundraising tool. But it's important to know under this new system, because the dues amount is variable and any amount that a member chooses to pay in dues is the dues, then a higher dues payment is no longer exclusively a contribution to the local league. So right now, if I pay the base dues to my league, then, you know, their PMP is the same as if I pay, you know, double the dues to my local league. And so right now, all of that I'm paying extra is just going into the bank account of the local league. But under the new system, that will be split along the same percentages. So it'll be clear on the join page what percentage is going where. We absolutely don't want this to be confusing to members, because we know that they've been, you know, a lot of the thinking behind this is they want to be contributing to the local league. So we want to make sure that they're not confused about this. And there will be an option to also make an additional contribution to, you know, there will be another page that says, would you like to make an additional contribution? And so it will still be possible to do that, but it won't be a matter of just choosing a higher dues amount. Like if a higher dues amount is chosen, then yes, that will benefit every level of league, but it won't go exclusively to the local league. So something that local leagues can be doing now is to just make sure that that's clear to members. Again, it will be clear on the page, but the more we're socializing that information, the more they, you know, again, won't be confused. And we are providing some content for sharing with members on the league management site. Again, I'll drop a link to this in the chat afterwards. We have some language that you can put in an email or in a newsletter. And there's also a PDF that a league put together that really covers the basics in terms of the information that a member might care about knowing at this juncture. So again, it's mostly just sharing that information. And as I said at the beginning, a fundamental goal of this is to make sure that every level of league has the funding that they need. And so if there are parts of this process that need to be tweaked as we learn more and after launch of the system, then they will be. So here is a timeline around this process. Right now, we're in that big purple bar at the top where we're setting up Chapter Spot. We're meeting with Chapter Spot weekly so that they can get all of the data and get that set up properly. And then these gold stars are the places where leagues will need to take action. So the first one here is setting up a Stripe account. So as I mentioned before, that's something each league will need to do, but you don't need to do it now. These particular Stripe accounts need to be set up through Chapter Spot. So even if your league already has a Stripe account, a new one will need to be set up through Chapter Spot, and this won't happen until the fall. But that is, and also we got a lot of feedback from leagues that the time leading up to the November election is very busy, understandably. And so nothing needs to happen in that time. All of these things that we'll be asking from leagues is after the election. And so in November, December, and January, that's when we'll really be getting into training and implementing this new system, again, for a launch at the end of January 2025, beginning of February. So some things to be thinking about as we move into this process. One is updating your league's bylaws. I know a lot of leagues have already had their annual meetings for the year, so that might not be something that can happen still this year if it hasn't already happened. But it's a good idea to take a look at your bylaws and see if there's anything in there that conflicts with these changes. For example, a lot of leagues have mentioned in their bylaws of how dues will be set or the dues amount. They might say everyone joins on X date. Anything like that would need to be amended. It's also important to be thinking about these changes as you think about budgeting. I know, again, for a lot of leagues, budgets are already passed, this is already done. But for each of these things, there is guidance available on the league management site if that's helpful. And another thing to be thinking about now is updating the roster, making sure every person has an expiration date listed. That's how the system will know when to ask a person to renew. So it's important that each person has their expiration date. It's also important that each person has an email address listed. We know that not all of our members use email, so in some case, if a person doesn't use email, it's okay to fill that in with a dummy email, but that'll be their unique identifier going into the system, that they'll have their email address. And it's also important to make sure that your league has a point of contact listed, because going forward, when there are things that your league needs to do or when there's information you need to have, that will be sent to the point of contact. So you can put that point of contact in on your roster, or you can just email it to me and I can put it into your roster. That's cool too. The email is membership@lwv.org, and I will put that in the chat as well. And so then again, each league will need to set up a Stripe account, but again, that's happening in the fall. And then there will be training by league role. So there will be a training for treasurers, a training for membership chairs, so that you know what you'll need to be able to do and how to do it in the system. And then again, for that launch in January/February of 2025. So ChapterSpot also offers additional tools, namely a website and a mass email tool. There will be templates included so that they're fairly easy to set up and use. And these are free of charge to leagues. They are optional though. So if it's great. If you don't like your website, or if you don't like paying for your website, you can sign up to use this website. But if you like your website and you're happy with that, there is no pressure to change it. The only thing that you do need to use is the membership component of ChapterSpot, but these other things are there for if you want them. And so going forward, I'm excited to answer questions now, but if you have questions after this is over, if something comes up tomorrow, you think about it, please email membership@lwv.org. And then also we do have office hours monthly. There isn't one this month because of convention, and also it was going to fall on holiday. But next month, we'll go back to the third Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern. And there's a registration link available on the ChapterSpot resources page. I go over the same presentation, so you can pop in 20 minutes late if you have questions but don't want to hear all this again. And that's where, if there's other information that we're learning as we go on, we can share that too. And then the ChapterSpot resources page is really the hub for any information like this. That's where these slides are. That's where the content for sharing with members is. That's where the budget and bylaws guidance are. Also FAQs, just sort of an overview if you're looking for a different format to read and think about this information, that's there. Anything we have related to this is there. The chart that I showed you earlier. So that's where I would recommend going if you wanted to share this information with anybody else. And then it's not on here, but another thing is the league update. If you're not already signed up for the biweekly league update newsletter, that's another place where information, or if we add another tool to the website or to this page, that's where that would be announced. So that's a good thing to be reading and checking out. So that is what I've got. I'm going to stop sharing, and I will get the link to drop in the chat so you can all see it. And I am happy to take whatever questions there are.
Well, we have a few. Let's start at the top. If someone pays their dues by check instead of online, how long does it take for the membership dues check to be processed once they're sent by the local league treasurer to LWVUS or ChapterSpot? People tend to worry if their checks take a long time to clear.
Yeah, that's a good point. And this is partly why we're really hoping to encourage people, anyone who can, to pay online. That will just make it easier, and they won't have to worry about that time lag, and also then leagues will have the funds immediately. But so I don't have the exact dates on how long it'll take. Essentially, the way it looks like this process will go is if somebody wants to pay by check, they'll give the check to the local league treasurer. And then I know a lot of Michigan leagues use the ed fund that housed at the national level. It'll be a similar process to that, where there will be a form. And so then the checks will need to be identified and then sent to a bank for processing a lockbox. So because of that additional step, also, it would ideal for people to be paying online and not having to do all this mailing and stuff. But we know that some people will still be paying by check.
Thanks. Okay, next one. The Detroit League currently uses a Give WordPress plugin, a CRM tool for membership dues, as well as donations. Give WordPress not only tracks all of our online members and donors, it is designed to send admin emails to the membership chair, to the treasurer, the secretary. Will Detroit be able to keep the Give WordPress plugin with the unified dues system?
So no, all the dues will still need to come in through Stripe, through ChapterSpot. You'll still be able to use that for donations, but all the dues the online dues will have to come through Stripe. Okay. Because that's how it gets split.
There's a number of questions about the membership join dates versus the current expiration dates. Are you looking for all of us who have been in the league a while, and let's say our expiration dates are June 30th, do you just then start looking at as our join date as July 1st?
It'll be the one that's really important is the expiration date. So we know that particularly if people joined a long time ago, they might not know when their join date is. It might not be on the roster, but the most important thing is the expiration date, which is to say that we've heard from leagues that have moved from an annual renewal to a rolling renewal, that for a long time, your members will probably cluster around the same time. If everyone currently is expiring June 30th, then they'll probably continue to join and renew around this time of year. But as you get new members who are potentially joining throughout the year, it'll spread out over time. But yeah, it's really the expiration date that's important.
So the people who, I know in our league, we would prorate the dues if somebody joined, say, February 1st. We don't have to worry about that. You're just looking at the expiration date and charging us accordingly.
Yeah.
Okay, great. What happens if someone joins online but never logs into the portal?
Yeah, we have heard that this is a concern from leagues that are on Club Express now, because that's it works in a similar way, where a lot of the information is collected when a person logs into the portal for the first time. My expectation is that there are probably going to be a lot of members who we won't get all of that data on them until a year after, when it comes time for them to renew, and then they have to log into the portal. But the more, leagues will be getting a notification email when a new member joins. So I think it'll still be good for leagues to be reaching out to new members, doing whatever you're currently doing to incorporate new members into the fold. And so I think that's probably a good opportunity to encourage them to be filling that out and logging in. But yeah, we have heard that is a struggle for leagues that currently use a similar system, that getting people to log in and stuff.
Thanks. And someone is asking what a member at large is, and that's, Nora, I'll let you take that. We do have some of those in Michigan, but go ahead.
Yeah, so it's somebody who chooses to be a member at the state level rather than at the local level. This is particularly true for people who live in communities where there isn't a local league, but it's also possible for anybody who just wants to engage mostly at the state level.
except we don't really do that here in Michigan.
Do not.
So please don't encourage it.
Yes, everyone join your local league.
Yeah, please.
A lot easier. I'd like to verify the fact that current members who renew every year by January 1st can continue to do so. They do not need to change their renewals to reflect their original join date.
Right. Yeah.
Great. What is the grace period for renewing after an expiration date? Presently, we have a window of renewal of a month when a member stays in our roles after expiration. This essentially gives a month for renewal.
Yeah, it'll probably be similar to that. We haven't exactly defined what the grace period will be, but I asked the League Experience Brain Trust. I know some Michigan members have been involved in that. That's the group that I email when I have a question about how is this working at the average league. And so we've gotten some feedback, and I think a month, 2 months is fairly common. And so I would guess it'll be around there.
Thanks.
But also, we'll make sure that members are receiving their initial emails before it's coming up, so that they have as wide of a window as possible and don't have to necessarily expire before renewing.
Thanks. Oh, this is a good question. Will the renewal amount be for the same amount that the person originally joined for? Or does it depend on if dues are raised, for instance, at a convention?
Yeah, so it will be if a person signs up for audit. My understanding of the process, and I also may learn more about this as we move further, but my understanding of the process is that it will be for the same amount that they chose. But a member who, even if they sign up for auto renew, there will be an email that goes out to them. We don't want suddenly, we don't want them to forget that they signed up for auto renew and then this money came out of their account. And how did that happen? So there will still be an email that goes out. And as part of that, we can include language that says something along the lines of, if this is still the amount you want to pay, great, you don't have to do anything. If you want to change your dues amount, click on this, whatever. So they won't be locked into that forever necessarily, but it will be the same amount from 1 year to the next.
Thank you. Do roster managers need to get household members' emails? Right now, additional household members share primary members' emails, or as you know, Nora, we use that shorthand where we basically give them a non-working LWV email.
Yeah, if there are household members that do use email and you just don't happen to have their email, it would be great to get that. So that way they'll be able to log into the portal on their own. That would be helpful. Thank you. So
they would need their own email to log into the portal.
Yeah, 2 members can't use the same email in the portal because that's their login username.
Got it. Will the website support multiple languages, especially Spanish?
That is a good question, and I feel like we've talked about it, but I'm not remembering the answer right now, so I will ask about that.
Can't believe we asked a question. I mean, usually you've been doing these for so long. I would have thought all the questions have been asked dozens of times.
Yeah, I'm impressed.
What personal information does Chapter Spot require?
So if we're talking about for members, the information that we'll be collecting when a new member logs in, or when a member logs in for the first time, just to back up for a second, the way it's going to work is around the time of launch. So last week in January, first week in February, every current member is going to get an email saying, hey, log into the portal for the first time. They will not be asked to renew or pay unless that also happens to be their expiration date, but they won't. Most of them won't. They'll get the email when their expiration date comes around, but they will get this email that says, hey, log in, and that way they have portal access. They can fill out the information, these questions that are. So when a person logs in, it will ask, again, the things we're going to be asking all members are demographic questions. So really race or ethnicity, gender, birth date, And so that's the personal information that'll be there. All of those will have prefer not to answer options. So there'll be required questions. Something has to be filled out, but a person can say, I don't want to tell you that, and that's totally fine. In terms of personal information, additionally, one thing that has been a concern for some leagues, and so something to start thinking about, is that Stripe requires someone from the league who's signing up for the Stripe account needs to put in their social security number to set that up. That's a federal law. It's like an anti-terrorist law to make sure that there's not money laundering or something. Anytime you're signing up for an online payment system, somebody needs to put their social security number in. So that is another personal information component that is something to just be thinking about.
This is a follow-up question from Sarah in Detroit. She said, and this is regarding the Give WordPress thing. I imagine the treasurer will have deposit info because the member provides info via the new system. How will the membership chair know that someone has joined or renewed?
There will be an email sent out to them.
And does that just go to one person or can it go to several?
I think it can go to several.
Okay. That's important because I think so many leagues, when somebody joins, they may disperse that information to 4 or 5 people.
Yeah, I think it should be able to go to several. And in addition to the notification component, most or potentially all league officers should have access to that information when they log into the portal. So, you know, some people at the league may be getting these notification emails, but any officer, you know, particularly treasurers, membership chairs, roster managers, anyone who needs that, a list of members and access to that information, that they'll be able to see that in the portal.
Okay. And we can probably answer this for Paul, but I'll read it. Paul, who's with the Eastern Upper Peninsula MAL unit, is saying that he wonders if a Stripe account established by the state league will satisfy also those joining, for instance, the Eastern Upper Peninsula League. We don't think there would be a separate Stripe account for each one, but we know that when somebody joins at the state level, and for instance, we see that they've clicked on the Eastern Upper Peninsula or the Macomb League, we assign those to that person. That wouldn't change at all, would it?
It shouldn't. No, yeah, that should be how it works.
Right.
We're still determining some of the details around the MAL units, but yeah, I wouldn't think an MAL unit wouldn't have to create a Stripe account because a lot of MAL units, I don't know if this is true in Michigan, but a lot of them don't have bank accounts. So.
Right. Well, right.
Just to jump in for a second, this is Denise. Barb DeLu, who's on this, is our office person from LWVMI. And so we're having Barb be the point of contact for Chapter Spot for our state units or member at large units. So just, I think that, yeah, there's no need for the units to have Stripe accounts because Barb's going to be like the minder of this. So there she is.
And Barb's already been doing that. She's the one that sends out the reports every month too. So, how many times have Chapter Spot and Stripe suffered data hacks?
Wow.
Does each company notify users of hacking attempts, successful or otherwise?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that one either. I do know that Stripe is a respected payment processor and doesn't suffer undue numbers of attempts or certainly not successful ones. But I don't know the number.
And I would expect that like PayPal, their security is top notch because when you're dealing with people's money, you've just got to have every possible protection in place. The assumption is that all members are computer literate. How can we accommodate members that don't have a computer or an email?
Yeah, and I hope I did not convey that is the assumption. We do know that a lot of our members maybe are not computer literate, or maybe live in an area of the country where they don't have ready internet access. There are a lot of reasons why a person might not be able to engage with ChapterSpot in the way that we're hoping that most members will. And so that's why it will still be possible, again, for the roster manager to be able to put information in for somebody who can't access ChapterSpot themselves. It will still be possible for a member to pay by check. It's not necessary that members be computer literate.
Okay. And who in each local league should be the one to sign up for Stripe? Will that message go to the ChapterSpot contact? Should it be the treasurer? Should it be the webmaster?
Yeah, so we'll have detailed information about how to sign up for Stripe when it comes time to do that. So we'll probably send out the first email about this. We'll send it to the ChapterSpot points of contact. But something about the points of contact, I don't know if I went into this, is that it doesn't necessarily, if you signed up to be the point of contact, that doesn't mean you have to be the person to take every action. That just means the point of contact is the one who's going to hear the info, who's going to make sure that the appropriate people at the league have the information that they need and make sure that the actions are being taken. They don't have to be the one to take them. So maybe it's the point of contact, depending on who that is in the league. Maybe it's the treasurer, maybe it's the president, maybe it's the membership person. And in terms of, we'll have, when we share the information about how to sign up for Stripe, we'll have some more guidance in that. But yeah, it really, I think, depends on the league probably.
Thank you. Sarah, I hope I'm getting this question right. Please clarify, local leagues can keep their membership webpage, and I presume Sarah is talking about their password protected webpage on their, just for members on their websites, but they can link to the central portal from there.
Yeah, their public sites or their password protected sites, any sites the league is using now, they can absolutely keep and continue to use. The only thing is that, like, when you you'll need to include a link to the portal for joining. So if you currently have a join now button, then you'll just switch the link that goes to ChapterSpot. And if you don't have one now, then we can help provide guidance on how to add that to your page.
Thanks. Does either company sell data to third parties? Does LWV have a non-disclosure of member data agreement with each of these third-party apps?
That's another good question. I assume we do. I assume that was part of the contract, but I didn't sign the contract. I wasn't the person doing that. But I imagine that's the case, but I can confirm.
Okay. Kathy says, we collect most of our dues in October, from October through December. We will collect these this fall, and then do they pay PMP on them?
Yeah, so to go over the remainder of the PMP process, you know, of course, some leagues have outstanding balances right now. I don't know if any Michigan leagues do, but then for FY25, there will be invoices issued in August of this year based on the January 2024 member count. And then there will be one final invoice issued based on the January 2025 member count that happens immediately before launch of the system. So those invoices will be issued after launch of the system. And will be exactly based on members who maybe, if your league has members that mostly join from October to December, it will be those members who are then counted in January and then invoiced for in 2025. We know that this may cause some cash flow issues for some leagues because, you know, not every league is able to hold those member dues for the year, or in some cases 2 years, until the invoice comes out for those members. So there will likely be an extended deadline on that final PMP invoice because, you know, if you're generally used to then collecting new year of dues by the time that invoice comes out, now leagues will only be keeping the 20%. So it's there, again, there could be some cash flow issues. Any leagues that have moved to real-time payments on Club Express, which many Club Express leagues have, we haven't heard of a ton of issues moving to that real-time payment. Most of them have been able to weather it okay. But this is another thing where if there are issues, please feel free to reach out to us. This is not intended to be a hardship for leagues. In some cases, I think this will really benefit because right now it's just kind of confusing. It's the idea that a member, if a member joins, you know, tomorrow, then they're not they're being counted in January and they're not being invoiced for until next August. And it's just not intuitive.
Right. So this means, everybody, that we still have one more year to make sure that our January 31st counts are up to date and to purge anyone so we don't get charged PMP for them if they're no longer a league member. Next question. Can a local league collect dues checks and send a check to LWVMI and LWVUS with their shares?
So we really want to make sure that everyone is doing the same process. And so it's partially, maybe a small league that wouldn't be a huge burden to do, particularly if people are generally joining at the same time. But for a larger league where, that would essentially mean dozens of PMP invoices throughout the year. And maybe we're not invoicing, but maybe, the league is figuring that out. So really it's important for everybody to use the same system of the mailing the checks in. It's not ideal. Again, we talked about the delay and all of that. But it is the way that we make sure we can keep track of everything in the same way. With 800 leagues across the country, it's just much easier to have everybody do things the same way, which is partly the appeal of the unified dues system.
That's right, understood. And I know, Nora, we've been working with you to make sure that all of our leagues have an assigned person as the chapter spot contact. So those of you who have questions about that, frankly, it's usually whoever is working on your database now. They've probably put their name in as the contact. But it's really, you're just looking for that one person, Nora, to disperse information to others, correct?
Yeah, just somebody who is a good connector, well suited to communicate that information. I don't want anyone to feel like pressured, like, oh, if I signed up to be the point of contact, that's going to be a lot of work for me. It's really just somebody who checks their email and is in touch with everybody else, or at least anyone else who might have to take one of these actions.
And anything major about the system, we'd be notified through other channels as well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, ideally the point of contact is somebody who is reliably checking and finding out about this information, but we'll be here to answer questions if something comes up, if something, doesn't make sense. And of course, this will still all be communicated to the state leagues. So the state leagues are, I know particularly in Michigan, you all are a great source of support for the leagues. And I think we'll have many ways to share this information. Everything's going to be on the chapter spot resources page. I'm not worried about a difficulty getting the information.
Any other questions? I think we've covered all the ones in the chat, but if anybody else has a question, we'd ask you to come off mute and pose it in real time. And Nora, could you reiterate when the office hours are in case people, especially maybe membership and treasurers, could go on to, and I will say I've been on those, and sometimes it's just interesting hearing the other questions. You don't even have to have a question of your own. But if you could reiterate when those hours are and the days.
Yeah, it's the third Wednesday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern. I just dropped the link to the chapter spot resources page again in the chat. And so the registration is there now. I think registration is open for the July and the August meetings right now, but those will be extended until at least launch, if not past that. And also, if you're unable to attend, we have been recording them recently. You can watch the recording. I post that on the chapter spot resources page afterwards. And also, I have been, this will likely continue, I've been answering all the questions from the chat, from the office hours in writing. So if that's more your style, for if you just are searching for a particular answer or anything like that. So I think Paula makes a good point that this is, some things come up, like you all asked questions today, and some of them haven't come up before. So all of that, the things people are asking are good to know and good to read about, and that's available there.
And rest assured, if you go on those calls, it's not like there's 4 people on and you're going to be put on the spot. to ask a question, there are a lot of people from all over the country, so you can blend in anonymously if that's what you want. Teresa, you had a question.
Yeah, well, my internet connection is not stable, so I may have missed something, but I want to verify. So we usually collect dues between October and December, where we put our final people into the roster. So we should continue to do, we should do this year's dues collection here. So the people that are in the roster as of, I think it's January 31st, those people we will get an invoice for. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then just to clarify what I thought I heard you say, Nora, so in 2025, even though the collection part will have changed, there's still going to be a count on January 31st and then a PMP bill in August of 2025 for whatever the member count was on January 31st of 2025. So there's going to be that awkward thing where you were saying like there might be cash flow because of issues, because of there's still the old PMP billing, but there won't be the inflow of dues in the same way that year as in previous years. Just to clarify that, because we've had a lot of confusion in my own mind about that. So thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, essentially right now we're on just such a delayed system that if members, you know, Teresa, you talked about members joining in October and through December. Well, those members are counted in January and then not invoiced until almost a year later. And so like, yeah, while we're still doing this delayed system, then the real-time system happens and there's that overlap.
And there will be lots of trainings available to all of us. So don't worry, this is not the last time you're going to hear about this. Susan, you had a question?
I actually didn't have a question. I just wanted to share some details with everyone because while Nora is talking, I can do two things at once. So I was up on the link that she gave us, and it took me a minute, but you actually have to go into the content library to get the resource stuff for Chapter Spot. So the link, she says, is Chapter Spot resources, but it doesn't go to that. It goes to the main membership page, and then you have to go to the content.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, I've done that a couple times now, and it's going to the main site, Nora, and then it's just the last content library. You got to click that. Oh, wait a minute, hold on.
That's really weird. It's not doing that for me. But
Hold
we've been
on.
having
Let me do that again. Let me do that again. Maybe it worked that time. Because the only thing I was like, where's the chapter resources? And I got all this other information and I was like, okay, it did that time.
Yay.
I stand corrected. It did that time. But the first time, I must have hit something. I must have hit something when I did it. But okay, I'm all set. I found it anyway.
Yay.
I just wanted everybody to know that it but I did get it and I downloaded some stuff already for me.
And another thing to note is if you're not in here and don't have the link saved later on, if you go to the league management site and just type Chapter Spot, it'll be probably the first or second thing that comes up. So.
Yeah, no, I saved it already.
Alicia?
I favorited it.
Amazing.
Alicia?
No, I just wanted to add to what Susan was saying. I think there may have been an earlier link in the chat that went to the main Chapter Spot site, because I experienced the same thing Susan did and went to the content library. But then there's a couple of different links in the chat, and so it may have just been a matter of the different links. So Susan, you weren't the only one who experienced that, but I do see that there was the other link. So I just wanted to let Susan know that.
And Mary Kay, since Nora talked about the demographic data that is going to be collected in Chapter Spot, I wondered if you would like to take this opportunity to let league members know about the survey that's coming out from us soon.
Sure. We are planning to update the results of our membership survey. The last one was done in fall of 2020. And so in the next few weeks, we will be sending out a new survey. Shouldn't take more than 4 minutes, 3-4 minutes to complete it. It will be relatively short, but it'll be a real nice update on demographic characteristics so we can see if we're seeing any shifts in any of the different categories. So I hope that you'll all take a few minutes to fill out that survey when it shows up in your email box. Thank you.
Thanks. And Nora, we're so grateful for the time you gave us. We feel like we got a lot of good personal attention, and we really appreciate what you're doing. And every time I listen to one of these programs or come to an office hours, there's new information, because we know you guys are learning as you go, and this is being developed, just as rapidly as you possibly can. And you seem to be very transparent about sharing as much information with us as possible. So we're grateful for that. So let's give Nora a hand and we'll sign off for the evening. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate it.